No, I wasn't muted. You just didn't hear. Your ears just didn't work. I wasn't muted. Mm-mm. Just your ears not working. So what I said was, I'm starting 5 minutes early so I can tell all of you that you're late. How do you like that? Anyway, hope you're doing well on this Sunday. You know, ideally, Sundays should be enjoyable, right? Chilling out and stuff. It's not always how it happens, but ideally. We are moderately caffeinated. See, there's your problem. Moderately? That ain't enough. Just ate jumbo hot dog with rice. Nice timing. Okay. A little unrelated, but alright. Sounds good. Shouldn't every day be enjoyable? Ideally, but during the week, that's not really the case. Too much goddamn work. I haven't checked out Chivalry 2 yet. I'm not really sure if I want to. Because I think I was pretty much done with the first one. I played it quite a lot, and I only have a certain threshold, I guess, for games. Like I can't keep playing games forever. You know, there's some people who put like literally 1,000 hours into a game, and I that just baffles me. I could never do that. It just gets boring. Like even the best game on earth eventually gets boring if you could just keep playing it over and over and over again. Anyway, thanks, Lobo Monos. Change for the hat, good sir. The hat? I ain't holding no hat. But thank you. I was wondering, when it comes to fantasy settings, how much would melee fights change if one or both of the fighters had 3-jointed legs? 3-jointed legs. Could come in handy, I suppose. I mean, greater range of motion is generally a good thing in a fight. It also means that there's an extra joint to attack, though. Because, you know, striking someone in the side of the knee, for example, yikes. That sucks. Even with a blunt sword. So the more joints you have, the more easily wasted you get. See what I did there? Change for the scabbard, yeah. Better. Oh, the piggy bank. Those haven't been around since the 90s, have they? Maybe even 80s. Just play a new game for a day or two and never touch it again. Yeah, that happens too. I have a bunch of games in my Steam library that have like a playtime of half an hour. And that was years ago. Yay. Random question. Do you speak French? I'm assuming you mean French. Well, I mean, I learned it in school. Like, 15... Wait. When was I in school? Over 20 years ago. And what I retain is the basic pronunciation and a couple of words, and that's it. I could not converse in French. It was actually kind of disorienting when we moved from British Columbia to Nova Scotia, and we drove through Quebec, suddenly being surrounded by French speakers and just having no idea what the hell's happening, you know? Particularly because I learned European French, and Quebec French is a little different. So I couldn't get anything. But that's okay. They do speak English too. What's your least favorite piece of fantasy armor? I kind of want to say gigantic pauldrons because they get so large. Like it's basically an arm, like an entire suit of armor in and of itself. You know, they're basically wearing an entire breastplate on each shoulder. It looks dumb. It would be crazy heavy. It would limit your range of motion drastically, and it's just, yeah, it looks stupid. Favorite? I do actually like asymmetrical armor, yeah, just in terms of looks. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I like how it looks. You know, when either you have just armor on one shoulder and arm, or one side is more heavily armored than the other, it looks cool. Like I kind of like it visually, you know. Thanks, Anthony. Waking up to a Skull live stream. Nice. Extremely random, but if you could have a... Okay. I don't know how to pronounce Gaelic, so I'm not even going to try. Great kilt. Any tartan, what would it be? Is it different from a regular kilt? Like, let me see. Great kilt versus standard kilt. Because I have a kilt. I'm just trying to figure out, is that the one? Is that the one that goes over your shoulder? No, I don't know. When I look it up, just okay. Yeah. I think that's the large one that goes over your shoulder. Yeah. I have not had one of those. They look pretty cool. I like them, but yeah, I just have a standard kilt. Standard. I'm trying to remember. I picked a specific tartan for the kilt that I have, but I think it was just for the colors rather than the clan affiliation. You know, just because I like the colors. Of course, my shitty memory cannot retain anything, so I don't remember which one it was. Let me just cheat real quick and see if I still have it somewhere. I could walk over to my wardrobe, but that's a bit of a disruption to a stream. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's the one. What pattern was it? What tartan? Does it even say? It doesn't even say. Okay, then I'm gonna have to compare. Let's see. It's the blue and green, but there are several patterns of blue and green. Wait. No. Not that. There's so many too. Campbell. Looks like Campbell. No, Black Watch. Never mind. Black Watch. That's the one. I recognize it. Yep. That's the one I picked. Just because I like the color pattern. Black Watch tartan. Let's see what else. The giant blanket one. Yeah. What do you think is the most effective improvised weapon that can be made in a few minutes if no sword or gun is available? A club? Like, you just take some random tree branch, basically. I mean, ideally, if you want something effective, ideally it's a bit more than that. But you can shape a club reasonably well and stud it or put some spikes on. It's definitely faster than forging an axe or something like that. So, yeah. I mean, if you want to go Stone Age, you could also, take a branch, split it in half, and insert a rock, tie it all together. That way you have a primitive mace. Not really mace, but sort of. What do you think of the swordplay in stun seed? I've never heard of that. What is? What even is? I'm not finding anything other than a battle pet ability in World of Warcraft. Okay. Yeah, pointy stick. I mean, a wooden spear is reasonably effective, but there are better things. What we choose for a melee weapon, halberd or partisan. I'm pretty partial to halberds, because they've got everything you need pretty much. I'm streaming for at least an hour today. Probably, yeah. It tends to be at least an hour. Oh, I see. Yeah. It's a silly meme. Okay. At least it's a little bit more creative and slightly less stupid than Ligma. At least stun seed exists. Silly meme kitties. Thanks, Chad. I'll be attending Combat Con this year. Have you ever been? Not so far. Well, I say so far. It's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast now. It's probably not happening anytime soon. Yeah, I mean, I had a chance, or would have had a chance, 1 year to go there, but I was injured, so that was out. Also, wish you the best in fighting this algorithm. I'll do my part to support your work. Thanks, appreciate it. The algorithm, it remains an uphill battle, but what can you do? Is there a proper way to fight in melee with a pistol? You can check out the video I made about it. I think empty pistol something. What did I call it? Hey. No. Handgun? No. What the hell did I call it? I thought I called it empty pistol versus sword or something like that. Okay. Gun? Empty gun versus sword. That's what I called it. Thanks, pedestrian 0101. Just got a copy of Maya's treatise. Do I have to learn fencing before I do staff? I pretty much got it for staff / spear / polearm. No, you can do just staff. You don't have to do sword first. I mean, You may want to check the sword section for footwork, because I think he covers footwork in the Dusek section. Yeah, just make sure you don't miss anything about footwork, but otherwise you can just do staff, no problem. Thanks Iron Lord 79 for becoming a member, appreciate it. What do you think modern plate armor would be like? Would it be easier to don or take off? I mean, we have things that are that sort of go in that direction if you look at riot gear, riot armor. And basically, bomb suits are also sort of plate-ish, Something like that. Would they be easier to put? Not necessarily. There's only so much you can do, really. Unless you have some weird sci-fi thing that you just hold against your body and, straps shoot around you and automatically adjust themselves. It's not really going to be too much you can do. That kind of gear is always going to be a little bit awkward to put on yourself. What did I miss? Well, as the title says, blabberings, I just babble about whatever people ask, and that's it. Is a flail good for a centaur? Arguably, yes, because flails are quite useful on horseback, and I mean, you're not on horseback if you are the horse as well, but it's the same effect. So, sure. I'm eating Oreos and I feel great. Oh, wait 10 minutes. I find Oreos tend to not make you feel great a while after eating them. Maybe it's just me. If you're still young, then maybe it doesn't affect you as much. But these days, I definitely feel whenever I eat unhealthy stuff. What do you think of throwing needles, bow shuriken, and how practical do you think they would be in a fight? They're basically a distraction sort of thing. I mean, it's more than just distraction. You can injure someone with them, of course, but it would be very difficult to inflict a lethal wound with them, unless they're poisoned or whatever. So it's really more like trickery, throw at someone and escape, or throw at them and then follow up with another weapon. Asymmetrical armor. Do you wear it on the leading side or the following side? Leading side, your main arm, since that's what's going to be in front of you, assuming a single-handed weapon. People often think about using it as parrying gear, basically, just block with it, and it's really not fantastic, Getting a strong strike with either a sword, let alone a mace or an axe, on even an armored limb is not going to be fun times. You don't really want to deliberately expose yourself to that. If you want to use active defense, then get a shield or buckler. Makes a lot more sense. If you were a character in an RPG like D&D, what class would you be? I don't know about D&D specifically, but any RPG, necromancer. Do you draw the art for these streams? This picture here, no. That's from a Neo Geo game. What do you think is the most overrated superpower? Overrated. Good question. Most of them are pretty useful. Which characters are overrated in general? I kind of have to say archery because I don't know, in a world where almost everyone has superpowers, your power, quote unquote, is you're really good with a bow. I don't know, that's kind of lame, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's overrated. It's more overrepresented because I think a lot of people agree with that it's kind of underwhelming compared to actual powers. Eye lasers, X-ray vision, yeah, fair enough. Invisibility, is that overrated? Possibly, yeah, because often it's kind of downplayed, or often it's kind of assumed that, oh yeah, everything you have on you and touch becomes invisible too. You know, you don't have to be naked to be invisible. I mean, sometimes they do it that way, and that would kind of suck. You know, that would not be great. I mean, the most underrated superpower is clearly plot armor. We can agree on that, right? Love your content, especially your dissections. That's a way to put it. I was wondering why axes seem to fall out of favor. In what context? Like where and how? I wouldn't say they did, really. I mean, you have access in all kinds of time periods, in all kinds of areas around the world, so I don't know. I mean, sure, like if you look at, say, 18th, 19th century, you know, modern warfare, you just have sabers and nothing else, pretty much. But yeah, swords are pretty dominant, that's true, but axes are still plentiful, I would say. These streams are so much fun, good banter. Well, glad you like them. Can a cane sword ever be practical? It's okay, you know. It's not fantastic. It's not the greatest compared to other swords. I mean, it doesn't have a guard. It's a, you know, by necessity, very narrow blade. They tend to not be extremely long. It's like, yeah. So they're okay. Not great. How come you never do any long form conversations with guys like Matt and Metatron? To be frank, I'm just not the most social person in general. And most of the time, I'm just kind of stuck in a rut where I struggle to keep up with my everyday schedule, and it's just kind of grinding to get out the next video in time, and I don't have like coordinating with others is tricky for me to fit in, and it's usually not really on my radar because I'm just so focused on I gotta get out the next video. Any kind of stuff like that that takes extra time is usually off the table. I should do it more often, I think, but I struggle with fitting it in. It doesn't help that my time management skills are horrible. The cane swords actually exist, yes. You have Victorian walking sticks or canes with blades in them. They weren't super common, but they existed. Would a sword be practical in these modern days? Like for self-defense? I mean, assuming that firearms aren't legal to carry, but swords are, yeah, they could be. But if you bring a sword to a gunfight, it's not really ideal. I don't have to point out why, right? Can a parrying dagger be used offensively? Of course, you can stab with it. It's not the primary use, but you can if you get close. Just cut the bullets, yes, so you get shot by 2 half bullets instead of 1. Self-defense spear would be a pain in the ass to carry around in everyday life, that's for sure. Which do you prefer, bolt action, lever action, or brake action? Yes. I like them all. If I had to pick one, probably bolt action. Lever action rifles have the advantage that they typically have a higher capacity, but I do prefer the operation of a bolt action. Even though it's not, I would say that a lever action is probably potentially faster. Also depends on the bolt action. I mean, there's, like the Swiss K31 with the straight pull. That's very fast, obviously. All you do is this, and other bolt actions are pretty fast to operate too. But, lever action, like especially if you tune it, can be fast as fuck. How to stay sane on the internet. That is the big mystery question that no one has figured out. Even AI can't stay sane with all the garbage on the internet, so yeah. I think there might not be an option there. I guess it's more a question of how do you minimize the insanity or restrict? I don't know. Basically, don't be on the internet. That's the answer. Thanks, Rue197. What would your 13th to 15th century everyday carry be? Probably a messer, because of the versatility, and they typically come with extra knives in the scabbard, so you have tools as well. And I mean, other everyday necessities, fire starter and, probably a water container, things like that, this usual stuff. I'm not sure if they had the equivalent of a first aid kit, maybe just bandages or whatever. Novels/books that you would like to see get an adaptation, movie, show, anime, etc. I would really, really like something the quality level of the Netflix Castlevania series done for Sanderson's novels. Whether it's Stormlight Archive or Mistborn, that would be amazing. I honestly don't really want to see live action because they usually butcher it. I feel like animated shows tend to get it better. So that would be great. Netflix style animated Mistborn, hell yeah. I would totally watch the hell out of that. Best sword types for a beginner in HEMA. Whatever you're most interested in. It really doesn't matter. There's going to be a learning curve for everything. Sure, some things are a little more complicated than others. I would say rapier is more complicated than saber, for example, but just pick what you want. If you can't decide, try out a few things, and then you will be able to decide. What do you think about Flamberge blades? I like them. They seem like a real pain in the ass to sharpen, but overall, both aesthetically, I like them. And I mean, I've never tested one. I would assume that the wavy edge can probably help with slicing a little bit, but can't say for sure. I do like them. Thanks, Joe. Would metal gloves be effective in a sword fight? I'm actually planning to make a video about that. It's sort of a follow-up to the one I put up yesterday about catching a sword blade. It's going to be gauntlet versus sword. I'm just going to give you the short answer, no. Definitely no. Thanks, Kyle. How much thought do you put into home defense and self-defense? Do you carry anything on you like pepper spray, etc.? Home defense here in this place, I don't really put any thought into it because this is a apartment building, and we're on the fifth floor, and it's pretty secure. There's really pretty much almost no chance for someone to get up here. Self-defense, I'm out. I tend to not really carry anything because of the legal issues. If you carry anything specifically for the purpose of self-defense, you're in trouble, unfortunately, with the law. I have a very sturdy keychain, and I have a crap load of keys, so it's kind of an improvised flail. But my main thing is the best way to deal with self-defense situation is to not be in it. So situational awareness is the best thing to do. Generally avoid avoid suspicious individuals, avoid picking a fight, avoid bad areas. We don't really have that much here. Like, this place overall is pretty safe, so I don't really obsess over it. Favorite rapier style. Does style matter too much? Well, if you compare Italian to Spanish, it's quite a significant difference. I I like how fancy Spanish looks, and it's a very interesting approach. But I tend more toward Italian. Um, Capoferro in particular, like. What else? Don't escalate. Yep. Don't be in stupid places at stupid times. Sure. They're flamberge rapiers. Why would you do this? Aren't snake blades reserved for cutting swords? They look cool though. Honestly, that's probably the reason why they did it. They look cool. Now, there's one guess I have. That is that the wavy edge might bind better against another rapier. Maybe. But otherwise, I don't really see a good reason to put the extra effort in to making a wavy rapier blade. It's not really, and they're rare too. I've only seen a few. Like the vast majority of rapiers are smooth straight. Have you ever seen a flip sword that works, i.e., sword without a tang that folds down beside the handle? Um, would you be interested in seeing one that works? I don't think you can pull that off in this way, simply because it would be weak. Like if it doesn't have a full tang in the handle, it's just very likely to break. There, it's just not folding knives are not designed to withstand the kind of force involved in sword fighting. There's one exception there. There's a folding cutlass, which is like you have the hilt, then the lower third of the blade, the ricasso basically. This is the part that has the pivot in it. So the upper third of the blade folds in there, and there's a cutout in the handle that it goes into. And that seems like a better way because it still has a full tang, actually. Let me actually see if I can find a good picture and show you. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. I would actually really like to get one of these and test them, but they're hard to find, and they're antiques, so they tend to be kind of pricey. So there's that. Let me show you. Right there. That's what it looks like. So yeah, you can see that it has a full tang. You can see where there's a screw in the handle. And yeah, it's not as compact as a, folder that actually goes into the handle fully, but still more compact than in fully extended version. It's gimmicky, but it's cool, That is ugly. Yeah, it's not gonna win awards for prettiest sword design ever, but it's cool. Michael Cthulhu made a folding sword that was very sturdy. Oh, he did, and it wasn't too big to feasibly wield. That's good to point out. It's That's what he usually does, right? Have you ever considered getting an SKS? In some of my older videos, I was shooting one. It belonged to a friend. It wasn't mine. But the thing is, since then, the prices have weirdly skyrocketed for SKSs. Like they used to be dirt cheap. You used to be able to get them for like $150 or whatever, and now they're 400 or something. It's like, what? So I'm like, they're good, like they're solid and everything, but I do see them as a cheap surplus rifle. So now that they've increased so much in price, I'm not really interested anymore. Thanks, Bishop. New subscriber here. What can you say about sabers? What I can say is that the question is way too broad and vague. You have to narrow it down a little bit. It's like sabers. They're curved and they cut well. It's like you really got to give me a little bit more to work with. Sorry, I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to say about such a broad topic, especially considering the vast variety of sabers you have across time and in different places around the world, etc. What else we got? Bullpup rifles or non-bullpup? I do like bullpup designs. Not all of them are good, but generally I like them. Getting more barrel length in a compact design is definitely not a bad thing. Sabers are like cell phones, and one comes out every day. Well, there sure are a lot of them. Guys, ignore the Murica trolling. Obvious troll is obvious. Don't even spend a second on it. Just chillax. Yeah, exactly. Don't feed the trolls. Have you watched any of the episodes in the series on the GameSpot YouTube channel where Jonathan Ferguson breaks down Firearms in video games? No, I haven't. If you were to use a cutlass-like sword, would you prefer a wider blade or a thin blade? Do you mean a wider or a narrower or a thicker or a thinner blade? People often confuse wide and thick. Let me just reach for my little folding sword here. This is the width. That's the thickness. So you can't really say, how do you say, wider or thinner. It's either wider or narrower or thicker or thinner. So I don't know what you mean. But basically wide and thin is the most powerful cutter. It's just not as durable, and narrow and thick is the most durable but sucks for cutting, so something in between is good. I like wide blades, but wide and of course a distal taper helps, so a wide blade that starts out relatively thick-ish in cross-section and then thins out toward the tip, that's good. Were long polearm equipped soldiers vulnerable to projectile weapons? Unless they were clad in full plate armor, yes. Shields are kind of useful against projectiles. How powerful would an extremely hard and brittle sword be if it is used with basically perfect inhuman skill and edge alignment? Doesn't really help you if it's brittle because you still need to parry. Like, you still need to defend yourself against the opponent's attacks as well. And if they just shatter your blade, then you're shit out of luck. So you never want brittle. Plus, even with perfect edge alignment, if you have an overly hard brittle edge and you hit bone, it might still chip, so it's really not good. Why is it so uncommon to have shields hang in front of your belly? Because that would be a huge inconvenience, like you wouldn't be able to move properly. Like, if you want to protect your abdomen, get armor. You can't just hang a shield there. It would get in the way. Like, every time you move your arms in front of your body, you would just bump the thing around. That's just not good. You need something that actually conforms to your body shape. Can we get some halberd appreciation? Yes, of course, always. This sword would be good against slime monsters, yeah. Yeah, an extra hard, brittle blade. Yeah, you can use it to fight gelatinous cubes and whatnot. Although, not even that really. I mean, okay, with perfect edge alignment, yes, but if you cut into a slime and it's not quite ideal and it gets stuck, and then you get all that torque on the blade, you're probably going to snap it off. So Scottish Targe seems like the best combination of shielding and carryability. I do like the Targe. It's a good design, for sure. Also because you can use a weapon as well in that hand. There's definitely a lot to be said about it. I wouldn't want to use it on the battlefield if archers are present because that's really not much coverage, but otherwise for dueling, definitely good thing. How much heavier does a gambeson become in the rain? I can't tell you the percentage, but I'm guessing it could possibly double its weight. I think I even remember reading something to that effect. Like, it can soak up quite a bit of moisture, so it's not fantastic. Not that it's super heavy to begin with, but yeah, it would be inconvenient. How does look your friendship with Shadiversity? I saw that you jab from time to time each other. We do? Does he? I don't think I do. Not that I remember. First off, we're not friends because we don't know each other. I mean, personally, we know each other's work, but we don't know each other personally. So, I don't know. I try to not take jabs at other people, especially if I don't know them. I mean, either way, really. Even though it is historically used with a larger shield, do you expect that a gladius and a buckler could be used successfully together? They could, yes, for dueling. You called him a simp, for God's sake. Oh, come on. Jokes. We're gonna take jokes as personal attacks now? Well, I guess that's how the internet works. Anyway, my issue with that idea is like with sword and buckler, medieval arming sword and a buckler, you can actually put the buckler next to your hand and protect your hand with it. That's kind of the main point of it. The issue with a gladius is it's the guard, if you want to call it that, the top of the hilt is kind of bulbous, so it sticks out a lot more on the side. So it would actually force the buckler away from it, so you wouldn't get as much coverage. So it wouldn't fit together as well as a medieval arming sword. You could still use it, but not fantastic, I would say, in that regard. You literally teleported into Shad's video and gave him one of your swords. Yeah, I mean, clearly we hate each other, right? Oh well. People love drama, so they look for drama everywhere, no matter if there is any. Would a metal limb like Jaime Lannister's be useful in medieval warfare? Depends if it's like a cyber arm that you can actually control, then yeah, sure. If it's just a prosthetic limb, then not so good. Then you would be better off with armor. So where would friendship this way? Sorry, English is not my national language. Okay, never mind. It's all good then. It's not a big deal either way. Thanks, pedestrian. Pros and cons: Siphos versus General Norse design sword. My heart says to get the Norse. My aesthetics say the Siphos. I mean, they're very different swords. A Nordic sword, be it Germanic or Viking sword, is much longer and heavier. So, and both use a shield. It's just that the Greeks used a much larger, heavier shield. So basically, you flip it. The Greeks had the larger, heavier shield and the smaller, lighter sword. The Norse had the lighter, smaller shield and the larger, heavier sword. So it's actually an interesting question. Arguably, generally you can say a larger shield and a shorter sword makes more sense in formation. Whereas a longer sword with a smaller shield still works in formation, but it's arguably better for a duel. So it would make quite a difference if you had two armies in formation opposing one another, the Greeks versus the Norse, or if you have two individuals fighting a duel. If you have individuals fighting a duel, I'm inclined to say the Nordic sword. There's nothing wrong with the Xiphos, but extra reach is useful. Okay, you've probably seen it by now. I guess it's too much of an open question. I haven't seen whatever question you asked before. I haven't seen, so I have no idea. Who would win a 100-meter race? A Zulu warrior or a horse? Okay, why am I even reading troll questions? Because I can't always tell in the beginning if it is one. I should probably read it first before I start to read it out loud. A smaller shield makes your sword look bigger. Yeah, I guess it does. I just had carpal tunnel surgery. Do you know friends with that issue or other wrist injury still practicing HEMA? I know one person who has arthritis in the wrists and still does HEMA. Well, I don't know if she still does because that school doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, she did very well. It was total badass. Carpal tunnel, I'm not aware of anyone in particular with that, but yeah, I mean, there are ways to work around injuries to an extent. It depends on what it is. That could be an issue. I mean, for a time I still struggle with a shoulder injury, but for a time I had to switch to single-handed. I couldn't do longsword because the shoulder was just too messed up. You are a really odd fellow. That is a really odd thing to say. I hope you're aware of that. The question was about Mycenaean craftsmanship and ingenuity on bone armor, since it looks like such an outdated material for the time. Not necessarily. I mean, in the Bronze Age, they still worked with bone quite a bit, so I wouldn't say it's necessarily outdated. I'm assuming you mean I think, wasn't it a boar tusk helmet from Mycenae? So I guess it's not technically bone as such, but any kind of animal material was still used. So it is a bit of an odd design. I would agree with that, but it should be reasonably effective, especially against bronze weapons. As far as heckles and live stream chats, being called an odd fellow really is a more respectful one. Yes, yes, it is. Still odd though. Have you ever heard of anyone focusing on non-dominant hand swordsmanship to get better at dual, aka cool wielding? I mean, I know people who practice left-handed, not really for dual wielding, but just kind of to have a backup, so to speak, because sometimes you do get injured and then you have to practice with the other. In fact, I can think of one person who did get injured on the main arm. I forgot what kind of injury it was, but was forced to train with the left and then got pretty good at that. So it was really more a result of an injury. But that can, of course, help with dual wield. But at the same time, if you just practice single-handed with each hand, then that's not the full thing. Like, you still need to practice dual wielding specifically because you need to learn how to coordinate the two blades without them getting in the way of one another. So you still need to practice that specifically. Yeah, that's also what that person said. You can actually switch to left and confuse an opponent who is not used to fighting against lefty. That can be helpful for sure. If there was a con for medieval/classical weapons YouTubers, would you attend as a panelist if invited? If that happened right now and I was invited now, and assuming COVID magically disappeared altogether, currently no. Simply because I honestly hate showing myself right now. I don't even like to be in front of the camera, but I still have to make certain videos, but I don't even want to be seen, quite frankly. I just hate how fucked up and out of shape I am currently. So sword fighting equals generally dominant hand forward, and stand up unarmed combat generally dominant hand back. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, not necessarily, because there are guards in longsword fighting that where you have the blade retracted, like Wrathguard, you have the blade on the right side, so you do actually have the main hand retracted, so you can strike forward. It just depends on whether your left or your right hand, left or your right foot is forward. So you have both positions. I mean, in unarmed fighting, you can also switch it. So, yeah, basically it's the same. Have you tried Filipino stick fighting? Personally, I haven't. I've seen it, but I haven't done it myself. I'd send Skallagrim disgusting photos to make him feel better. It wouldn't. It's just, I have personal standards for myself, and I've completely failed those standards, and I hate it. It doesn't matter what anyone else looks like. It has absolutely no bearing on it. Nutella or peanut butter? Peanut butter is more versatile, but it's not as addictingly tasty, so that's a tricky one. What are your thoughts on the upcoming film Green Knight? I have none because I haven't seen anything about it, so no idea. Is that a Castlevania t-shirt? Yes, it is. Can leather armor be good for stealthy movement, or is that just a meme? It depends on what type and how it's made. It can be a little creaky, you know? But I mean, it's certainly quieter than mail or any kind of metal armor, really. It's not super crazy loud, but it's definitely louder than cloth. Have you ever significantly injured yourself or someone else in training slash sparring or in competitions? Well, I've got my ACL torn. I would call that significant, considering that it happened 6 years ago and still giving me trouble. As someone that wears leather motorcycle armor, it's not quiet. Yeah, that stuff is particularly. Yeah, what is the word? Creaky? Not really. Crunchy? No. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's kind of noisy. Leather armor is not really like that, because it's harder generally, so it's not that loud. Like it's a little bit of a what would you call it? The kind of sound that it makes. A rubbing noise. That sounds weird, but sort of. It's not that loud. Squeaky, yeah, sort of. Crispy, I like that. It's a crispy sound. Mm-hmm. Speaking of being a community manager, I would be interested to know, you've been at this YouTube game quite a while. Do you have anyone in your team, or is it all done by you and your partner? It's all me. It's all a one-man show. Aside from occasionally having someone to help me with a video, but yeah, this is why I struggle so much with keeping up, because it's a lot of stuff to manage by myself. Edible armor, licorice armor. Why are there a lot of trolls here? Do you have mods? I do have mods. I'm not sure any one of them is around right now, but there aren't really that many trolls right now. I probably have different standards from you, because I'm just used to the fact that the internet is crawling with trolls. So right now it's really not that bad. Mail is surprisingly quiet. I can't really agree with that. I think it's kind of noisy, actually. Noisy-ish. I mean, mostly when you move the empty mail around. Once you put it on, it's not quite as loud anymore, but it still makes sounds, for sure. First state in medieval battles is the conception about pouring hot oil to cauterize / clean wounds true or just a myth? I don't actually know if it's true. I've never delved deep into the sources to check if it's a common thing, and supposedly at some point a medic, if you want to call him that, at that time figured out to use wine instead, and that worked a lot better for obvious reasons. But this is probably something, one of those citation needed kind of cases where you do need to do a little bit of source critique. So I don't know for sure. Gambeson under male might be quiet since a gambeson would muffle the sound. Not necessarily. So here's the thing. Here's what causes noise with male. The male needs to be a little bit longer. Well, it needs to be long enough to cover your entire arm when it's outstretched, right? So when you bend your arm, the rings just kind of fall down a little bit, right? They kind of compress. So that's what makes the sound when the rings move against one another and kind of clack together. So that can happen either way. Thanks, OVDU. You're from Norway. Your culture's myths are founded on dealing with trolls. Well, there are myths about bridge trolls, but the thing is, the bridge trolls usually don't come out to bother you. They just sit under the bridge. So if you want to cross, then you have to deal with them. So they don't come to you. Internet trolls come to you. So, you know. From what I've heard, Brigandine isn't very loud. Yeah, that's true. You have the plates on the inside. I mean, it is loud when you move the Brigandine around without wearing it, but when you're actually wearing it, I mean, that you do kind of hear the plates clack a little bit here and there, but if you have padding underneath, then it's not very loud. Honey was known for medical properties even in the Middle Ages. Yes, it's antiseptic, so that can be useful. Thank you for answering my questions, but as I'm in Australia, it's very late. So I must go. One question though: antler, would it work as an improvised weapon? It was used actually. There are antler mattocks used in the Stone Age. So it's just a piece of antler hafted on a stick, basically, and it becomes like a war pick. We rarely see very fit and muscular HEMA guys. Then you're not looking enough. I've seen plenty. There are plenty of fit and muscular HEMA practitioners, especially the ones who are very serious about competing. I know when you're looking at YouTubers, there tends to be a certain tendency. I mean, it also depends on when you look. You know, if you look at my videos from 2017, I'm all skinny and fit looking, and now I'm once again a blob because that's what food addiction does to you. So it really depends on who you look at and at what time in their life you look, you know. There are plenty of fit people. Trying to convince my friend how silly a dual-ended mace staff would be. It would be quite silly, yes. I mean, better than having two blades on it. I mean, long blades at least. It's just you're throwing off the balance and you're adding unnecessary extra weight. Just tell them that with a mace, the reason why a mace hits so hard is because you have most of the mass concentrated on one end, at the end of a long lever, on one end. If you put another one on the other end, then you're pulling the point of balance down a lot. So now it doesn't do what it's supposed to, not as well at least. Like in case of a staff, like if you, like an iron shod staff, you're just adding a little bit of weight to the staff. Because the staff, you want to be a little bit more even because you want it to be faster. The point is you can strike at much higher velocity with a staff. But if you put two heavy mace heads on either end, you're just messing it up completely. You're adding weight and you're messing with the balance. So now you have the worst of both worlds, basically. Greetings from Israel. I really love watching your videos, but I think that your hobby is kind of weird, but it's fun. So, all right, you can think whatever you want. That's fine. Can you do a backflip in full armor? I think I've seen somebody do some acrobatic feats in full plate. I can't remember if a backflip was among them. Somebody who's, has enough explosive strength should be able to pull it off. Why would you? That's the other question. It's not very purposeful. My first visit at a HEMA gym, I thought I got lost. Half of them were frickin' cut, the other either slim or us new guys, comma girls. Huh? I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but okay. Do you have any custom-made weapons? Yes. You might have seen some videos of them. If not, then go check them out. What else we got? What? What? Is that an off-balance fan slash something flapping against a vent somewhere in your apartment? I don't think so. Another odd question, but okay. HEMA is a martial art. Anybody who denies that you must be an athlete to practice martial arts with full effectiveness is practicing bullshito. Yeah, I agree. All I would add is that not everybody wants to do it at, with full effectiveness, in the sense that some people do it mainly for fun. So they don't need to be at, top competition shape. But yeah, generally, yes. Any thought about Ensifer feathers? I like them. They are very well made. Can definitely recommend. Oh, crunchy neck. Do you have a current favorite sword? That would still be the Kriegsmesser. Pretty simple. I hear the flapping too. What are you guys talking about? Oh, that's a fridge. The ticking noise is the fridge. Can't do anything about it. Thanks, TK. What would be the best melee weapon for an astronaut / weightless combat? I don't think you can fight in zero gravity. Do you know why? Because the moment you hit your opponent, you would push yourself away and you wouldn't be able to actually deliver the kinetic energy to the target. Plus, you wouldn't be able to use your body weight because there's nothing to push against. It would be just your arms. You wouldn't be able to really control your direction effectively. Just forget it. In short, forget it. Okay, even if you were fighting with guns, ideally you would have two. You would fire one forward and the other behind you, so you actually stay in place. Because if you just fire at someone, it'll push you away and it'll push you backwards and propel you. You don't really want that. So it's just not. No. Actually, you may have a point there, a flail, because, well, I think the problem is as you spin the flail, you would probably wobble around. But the good thing about that is once you've accelerated it, the ball moves somewhat independently of your arm, so it would not push against you if you hit something with it. So yeah, it's probably the best chance you have. But really, in zero gravity, you can't. You can't really move effectively either, unless you have something to, grab onto and pull yourself along. Just doesn't really work terribly well. Have you ever seen a riding crop dagger combination available for purchase? No, can't say I have. How about a blowgun? I guess that could work. Maybe. How do I become an authentic Viking? Step 1, be born in Viking Age Scandinavia. Step 2, become a raider. Is it just me or are Skall's eyes pointing to different directions? Your eyes are clearly pointing to different directions, if that's what you think. Step 3, get drunk as fuck. Yeah, that's optional. Step 3. What fantasy weapon do you wish was good enough to be functional in real life? I do like transforming shenanigans. Like weapons that can turn from one mode into another. That would be neat if it worked in real life, but it sort of does, but not very effectively. Why do people think Norwegians were the original Vikings when it was clearly the Swedes? It was all three. It was Norwegians, Swedes, and Danes. They just went to different places. The Swedes tended to go head eastwards. The Norwegians tended to go over to the British Isles. No, wait. No, wait. The Danes went there and the Norwegians went to Iceland. Right. I might have mixed that up. Either way, all three. How did the Romans defeat phalanx if a spear is superior to sword? By flanking them with cavalry. That had nothing to do with this weapon is better than that. No, and they just exploited the weakness of the formation because it's not very mobile. It doesn't turn very easily. There's a significant difference between battlefield dynamics, how a formation works mechanically, so to speak, versus how weapons work in a one-on-one. Hey, let's go raid that volcanic island. Makes sense. They didn't raid it, they settled it. But yeah, it's still a bit of an odd choice, isn't it? But I guess they were just like, hey, there's land, there's nobody here, it's free real estate. Pretty sure they were Scottish Vikings as well. Well, you wouldn't call them Vikings, but raiders and pirates and whatnot. Yeah, of course, you had that sort of profession, if you want to call it that, just about everywhere. The Viking settlements in Greenland, yes, that too. But Iceland was just a little more significant, I would say. How much of a disadvantage of swords versus spear in duel of the highest skill possible in fighting game terms? What's the matchup? Wow, that's a that's a never-ending sentence. I'm trying to navigate it because there's no punctuation or anything. Let's okay. Highest skill fighting game matchup. Okay. Feeling like it's 8-2 for spear. What sword though? Like if you're talking spear versus arming sword, I agree with you. If you're talking spear versus long sword, it's more like a 7-3, maybe even 6-4. Long sword might be 6-4, yeah. Depends a lot on the type of sword. Yeah, I'm really bad in punctuation. Most of the chat is. Like a lot of people just ignore punctuation and do lower caps on everything. It's like it's a little bit hard on the eyes. Guess just typing as fast as possible, huh? Okay, there's a conversation going on that I have no idea what it's about. What else we get? Are you interested in African weapons? Yes. I mean, I've made a few videos about them here and there. Just a couple at least. No swords for me today. Broke my finger. Yikes. Sorry to know and hope it heals quickly. Do you agree that D&D proficiency system is partially correct? That weapon skill is much more generalized than just skill in longsword, skill in halberds, etc. Yeah, I've made a video about that, I think, a while ago. If you look RPG skills, something like that, you should be able to find it. There's something to it, to an extent, yeah. Because certain basics like footwork carry over and some body mechanics do carry over as well. Timing, definitely. Distance. Do you have inconsiderate neighbors? That doesn't even begin to describe it. This is a loony bin, this apartment building here. It's cursed. So that claymore, real Scottish claymores are single-edged basket-hilt swords. Yeah, I made a video about how technically it's more accurate to apply the term claymore to basket-hilt swords, but not single-edged specifically. It can be anything. Like if it's single-edged, it's a back sword. If it's double-edged, it's a broadsword. Both exist for basket-hilt swords. So. Anyway, I've been streaming for quite a while, so I think I'll wrap it up here and get going with the rest of the day. So thanks for words. Thanks for words. Yeah, I sometimes struggle looking for words because I can't decide which word to use. Thanks for watching, hanging out and everything, asking questions. Hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.